You've felt it, haven't you? That sting of being ignored, dismissed, or worse, taken for granted. You bend over backward, you give, you sacrifice, believing that consistent availability and endless forgiveness are the golden tickets to respect. Let me tell you, that's a carefully constructed lie, a narrative designed to keep you disarmed and compliant. You're playing chess, but you think it's checkers, and the other side is exploiting your predictable moves. You're losing the mental game because you haven't understood the true currency of value in human interaction. Most men walk through life like emotional punching bags, wondering why their efforts only breed contempt, not admiration. They're afraid to challenge the status quo, afraid to be the bad guy, and in doing so, they become irrelevant. This isn't about being a brute, it's about mastering the psychology of influence, understanding the levers of power, and deploying a masculine strategy that commands respect, rather than begging for it. If you're tired of being a doormat, if you're ready to stop being manipulated, and start dictating the terms, then pay close attention. We're about to unveil the uncomfortable truths, the Machiavellian secrets, that will transform you from a pawn into a king, giving you the ultimate advantage in the complex landscape of relationships. Stay until the end, or remain forever a casualty in a game you never understood. That carefully constructed lie tells you to be the martyr, preaching that endless giving and forgiveness will magically conjure respect. But what actually happens? You become a resource, not a respected peer. Predictability, in the brutal mental game of human interaction, is the enemy of influence. You inadvertently broadcast a lack of self-worth, signaling that your time, energy, and emotional bandwidth are cheap. And cheapness, make no mistake, invites exploitation, not admiration. People respect what they cannot easily obtain, what possesses intrinsic value. When your boundaries are porous, you strip away the very tension that makes connection meaningful, removing all challenge. This isn't kindness, it's a fatal flaw in your masculine strategy. The man perpetually manipulated, who believes his value is tied to constant appeasement, has already surrendered his power, piece by agonizing piece. Machiavelli understood this. A respect born from strength and consequence is far more reliable than fleeting affection. True emotional control means your need for validation doesn't dictate your actions. A high-value man defines his terms and upholds them. He knows demanding respect isn't aggression, but quiet, unshakable self-possession. It's about setting boundaries that are fortresses, not lines in the sand. The myth dictates sacrifice. Reality demands a potent masculine strategy. But what happens when you finally stop playing by their rules and start writing your own script for genuine influence? When you cease being the endlessly available resource, you initiate a fundamental shift in the power dynamic. This isn't about childish games or calculated manipulation for its own sake, but a strategic reevaluation of your worth in the brutal mental game of human connection. Consider it psychological warfare, not against others, but against the conditioning that has taught you to diminish yourself. A high-value man understands that genuine respect is earned through a combination of competence and judicious scarcity. He doesn't vanish, he simply makes his presence a privilege, not a given. This demands profound emotional control. You must be immune to the instant gratification of constant validation, refusing to chase approval. Machiavelli would appreciate the cold logic. People value what requires effort to obtain or maintain. Your masculine strategy must involve setting clear, non-negotiable boundaries, not as a defensive posture, but as a statement of your inherent value. When you consistently demonstrate that your time and attention are finite resources, others begin to perceive them as valuable commodities. The previous dynamic where you were susceptible to manipulation dissolves. You dictate the terms of engagement, not the other way around. This isn't about being aloof or uncaring. It's about reclaiming your power and forcing a reassessment of your worth. It's about cultivating an aura that commands respect, not pleads for it. But how do you execute this delicate balance of presence and absence without appearing entirely disengaged? The key lies in understanding that your presence, when offered, must be potent. This isn't about being unavailable for the sake of it, but about making your engagement meaningful. When you justify every slight, forgive every transgression without consequence, or endlessly explain your feelings, you're not fostering connection, you're eroding your own power. You're signaling that there's no actual cost to disrespected boundaries. This is a fundamental flaw in your masculine strategy. A high-value man operates with an internal compass of self-worth that doesn't bend to external pressures for validation. He exercises supreme emotional control, refusing to be pulled into the reactive patterns that lead to manipulation. This is an integral part of the mental game. Instead, his presence becomes a deliberate choice, and his absence, a clear message. Machiavelli understood that perception is reality. If you act like your time is cheap, others will treat it as such. You must embody the respect you demand, first for yourself. This isn't just about setting boundaries, it's about the consistent enforcement of those boundaries, without apology or excessive explanation. When you allow someone to repeatedly cross a line without experiencing any shift in your availability or attentiveness, you are actively training them to disrespect you. This isn't subtle manipulation. It's a stark lesson in human behavior. The true power lies in your ability to maintain your composure and your standards, even when others try to test them. It's about cultivating an aura where disrespect simply doesn't find purchase, where the very idea of it feels out of place. The form of emotional control is your shield, allowing you to observe and respond strategically, rather than react impulsively. It ensures that your interactions are always on your terms, securing your position of respect. But how do you communicate these new terms effectively, especially when old patterns are deeply entrenched? The communication isn't primarily verbal, it's behavioral. You don't explain your new standards. You enforce them with the quiet, unyielding power of your presence and, more critically, your absence. This is the essence of a potent masculine strategy. When old patterns of disrespect surface, your response isn't a lecture or an emotional outburst. It's a precise, strategic withdrawal of your attention, your time, your emotional investment. This is where true emotional control shines. You demonstrate, not just declare, your value. The fear Machiavelli referenced isn't about terror. It's the primal fear of losing access to something genuinely valuable. It's the sudden, stark realization that your presence, once taken for granted, can indeed diminish or disappear. This isn't petty manipulation. It's a higher-level mental game. You are recalibrating the perception of your worth. A high-value man understands that his energy is a finite resource, and he allocates it with discerning intent. When I demonstrate that disrespect leads directly to a reduction in your availability, you are training the other person to associate negative behaviors with a palpable loss. This builds authentic respect because they begin to understand the real cost of their actions. The power shifts when they realize that maintaining access to you requires adherence to your standards. It's a stark lesson in consequence. But how do you ensure this perceived loss fosters genuine respect rather than resentment, and solidifies your position as a man of formidable value? The distinction is crucial. This isn't about petty emotional manipulation designed to punish or elicit a specific, immediate reaction. That path leads directly to resentment because it's perceived as a transactional game, a low-level form of control. A true high-value man operates from a place of self-respect and principled masculine strategy, not reactive spite. Your unavailability, when executed correctly, isn't a weapon. It's a statement of your non-negotiable standards. It communicates that your time and presence are a privilege, earned through mutual respect and adherence to boundaries. This is where true power resides. In the calm, unwavering assertion of your worth, devoid of anger or accusation. It's a mental game played at a higher altitude. Consider the teachings of masters, not just Machiavelli but every strategist. Understand human nature. People inherently value what is scarce and what requires effort to obtain or maintain. Your withdrawal isn't meant to cause pain, but to clarify the equation. It forces them to confront the reality that their actions have consequences, not because you're vindictive, but because you are rigorously protective. This demonstrates impeccable emotional control. They will respect your boundaries when they understand those boundaries are not arbitrary demands, but fundamental pillars of yourself. This isn't about making them respect you through fear, but about earning their respect through the consistent, dignified assertion of your value. This cultivates an environment where respect is a given, not a negotiation. It's a testament to your masculine strategy that you can command such respect without resorting to overt displays of dominance. You lead by example, defining the parameters of engagement. But how does this translate into forging deeper connections beyond mere transactional respect? When you strategically withdraw, you're not playing a shallow game of push and pull. You are, in essence, creating a vacuum that compels others to fill it with their own investment. This is not mere manipulation in the pejorative sense. It's a profound understanding of psychological triggers, a sophisticated mental game. A high-value man doesn't beg for attention. He structures his environment so that attention naturally flows towards him, earned through the consistent display of his worth. This takes immense emotional control, the ability to remain unswayed by immediate gratification, to resist the urge to explain or chase. The deeper connection arises when others choose to engage with you, not out of obligation or habit, but because they genuinely recognize the value you bring and the standards you uphold. They begin to see you not just as a presence, but as a force, a principle. This is the advanced stage of the mental game. It moves beyond simply establishing respect to cultivating a genuine desire for your company and input. Your masculine strategy ensures that those who truly matter will step up, proving their commitment by meeting your established energy and effort. You are not dictating their feelings, but rather providing the clarity for them to choose to invest meaningfully. This refined application of Machiavellian principles isn't about exploiting weakness, but about leveraging human psychology for mutual benefit, creating relationships founded on genuine recognition and earned power. But what happens when the absence isn't acknowledged? When your strategic move seems to fall on deaf ears? When your strategic absence seems to land on deaf ears, understand this. Silence is rarely true indifference. It's the initial tremor before the earthquake, the quiet processing preceding panic. The vacuum you've created demands to be filled. Initially, there's subtle discomfort, a vague sense of offness, but as absence persists, unease morphs into a potent void. The constant presence, once taken for granted, becomes a stark emptiness. This triggers a visceral reconsideration of your worth, a revaluation of the steady presence they once perceived as a given. This is where psychological warfare truly escalates. Their minds, seeking equilibrium, scramble to fill this void. They question, why are they gone? What did I miss? What have I lost? This isn't overt manipulation, but a natural consequence of a well-executed masculine strategy, rooted in Machiavellian understanding of human nature. You've simply removed the readily available resource, forcing them to confront the true cost of its absence. Easy access, predictable comfort vanished. With it, their passive consumption of your energy. This creates a powerful shift in perception, moving from expectation to active longing. Your absence forces a mental recalculation, making them aware of the power you hold, not through coercion, but through the intrinsic value you brought and now withhold. This is a critical pivot in the mental game, where respect is not just acknowledged but earned anew through the pangs of missing what was once constant. The high-value man doesn't explain his absence. The absence itself becomes the most eloquent, the statement of his worth, prompting others to chase the connection. It requires immense emotional control to let this process unfold, to resist the urge to fill the silence. But what about those rare instances where the void remains unfilled, the silence unbroken? Is there a point where strategic absence becomes simply absence? That's the ultimate test of your masculine strategy, isn't it? If the void remains unfilled, if the silence is met with more silence, it's not a failure of your technique. It's a stark revelation of the other party's true investment or lack thereof. This isn't about manipulation failing. It's about the truth being unmasked. A high-value man doesn't waste energy on those incapable of recognizing his intrinsic worth, and this outcome, though potentially disappointing, is a powerful form of data. It saves you from prolonged emotional chess with someone who doesn't understand the rules, or simply doesn't care to play. Your emotional control here is paramount, resisting the urge to chase, to explain, to salvage something that wasn't built on a foundation of genuine respect. This is where you fully internalize the Machiavellian principle that true power lies not in forcing interaction, but in discerning where your presence is genuinely valued. It's a tough lesson in the mental game, certainly, but one that clarifies your path. It tells you exactly who understands the concept of earned respect and who takes it for granted. The absence, even in its failure to draw them back, still exerts its power. It tells you everything you need to know, solidifying your resolve and refining your future strategy. But once this strategic withdrawal has done its work, whether in re-engaging them or recalibrating your focus, how do you then re-emerge from the shadows without undermining the very impact you've created? The gravest error, a blunder that unravels every thread of your meticulously woven masculine strategy, is to spring to attention at the first flicker of contact. Understand this. The initial probes you receive after a period of absence are rarely, if ever, signals of genuine transformation or newfound respect. They are almost universally a desperate reflex, a fear-driven response to the void you've created. This isn't a chess move. It's a frantic pawing at the board, fueled by panic and the sudden, uncomfortable realization of your absence. To immediately respond, to give in to that impulse, is to show your hand too soon, to declare the game over when it's barely begun. It shatters the illusion of your unwavering power and signals that your previous withdrawal was merely a tactic easily broken. Your emotional control here is tested at its absolute peak. Giving them the instant gratification of your presence nullifies the very lesson you've subtly enforced. It communicates that their absence of thought for you was only temporary, and that their fear alone is enough to bring you back. This isn't how a high-value man operates. This isn't about manipulation, in the Machiavellian sense of calculating moves. It's about safeguarding your intrinsic worth and demanding a level of respect that isn't born from fear, but from genuine valuation. The mental game dictates that you observe, you analyze, but you do not react, not yet, because understanding the nature of these first contacts is only half the battle. The real test is in how you then translate that understanding into your next move, ensuring it reinforces, rather than dismantles, your carefully constructed image of power. But what exactly defines a genuine re-engagement versus a mere emotional spasm? And how do you differentiate between the two without sacrificing your leverage? A genuine re-engagement, true respect, doesn't emerge from a chaotic scramble to fill an empty space. It manifests as a calm, considered approach, often accompanied by an acknowledgement of their own part in the dynamic, or a genuine expression of missing the positive impact you brought. It's not about the absence itself, but the realization of the value that absence revealed. This isn't an impulsive text demanding your presence. It's a measured attempt to bridge a gap, indicating a fundamental shift in perception. An emotional spasm, conversely, is a desperate, often petulant attempt to reassert control or alleviate immediate discomfort. It's a low-effort maneuver, a childish tug-of-war where they're only pulling because the rope went slack. This is where you see the amateur trying to employ rudimentary manipulation, a crude attempt at Machiavellian tactics without the underlying strategic brilliance. They haven't truly processed your worth, they've only felt the sting of its withdrawal. Your emotional control in this phase is paramount. The high-value man recognizes that this mental game isn't about immediate gratification, but about establishing a lasting framework of respect. Your masculine strategy must be to discern the genuine from the superficial, to differentiate between a fleeting moment of panic and a profound shift in their understanding of your power. But how do you then calibrate your response to such an overture, without either overplaying your hand or appearing indifferent to true growth? Ultimately, discerning genuine value from desperate manipulation is the true essence of your power. It's not about applying Machiavelli's crude tactics, but about mastering your emotional control to win the complex mental game. So, tell me, have you ever been manipulated and didn't even realize it until it was too late? Share your insights and experiences below. To continuously sharpen your masculine strategy and truly become the high-value man who commands genuine respect. Subscribe and hit that notification bell now. It's the only way you'll keep unlocking the deeper strategies most men never discover. Next, make sure you watch our latest video on cultivating unshakable self. Stay powerful.